All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. It is 7:01 right here, this beautiful Wednesday evening. Let's do a roll call.
Brian?
Here.
Michael?
Here.
Randall?
Here.
Alex?
He's out on a phone call.
Okay, Raduca?
Here.
Lisa?
Here.
Richard N?
Yes.
Jesse?
He's running late.
Okay. Rick?
Yep.
Alexa?
On her way.
Adam?
Here.
Tony here, Yosef? And Richard Adams.
Yo.
You got the other back forms?
Yes.
All right, just a quick update from me, and then I'm probably going to cede my time as well. I just want to say welcome to another month here. We are upping the public comment clock to 2 minutes. Do not abuse it. I think it's a great thing. If we can get more public comment for 2 minutes instead of the usual one. Some of you have seen my update. The website has been updated. Finally, there's new stuff going on. There is social media activity going on. A lot of this, again, I'd like to thank Allie over here and our VP, Randy. It's a very huge undertaking. They dug their heels in and they got it done. Still more to come, but it's great for what we're seeing so far. And then with that, I'm going to cede the rest of my update to Richard Adams for a bank update. Richard Adams.
Alrighty, I'm the official representative. Okay, pretty sure my Army voice carries, but I'm the BID, which is the Business Improvement District, which is central part of Studio City, and the Valley Alliance Neighborhood Council representative for the board. Went to the BID meeting on the 9th. Christ, my fingers are big. They're having a winter holiday event on the 7th of December. This is Saturday, the day before our Luminary event. I asked the neighborhood council can have a place to do outreach for our event and for the community, for the neighborhood council in general. They're going to have a couple event things going on, like in front of the Bank of America things, and they're going to encourage retailers to move out on the street, flog their products, offer free samples, depending upon what they do. The idea, of course, is to drive business to the BID, which is what the BID is supposed to do. The administrative director is still working on that. The BID is also working with the city and with Metro to inspect, then repair or replace as needed all sidewalks in the BID area. If they're really bad damage, they replace them. They may grind them down. They may fill them with epoxy. Meanwhile, Metro is on a mission by federal direction to make all bus stops in its area ADA compliant, which is why you go around town, you see them building concrete pads and doing things to the sidewalk there. They've already started that. They replaced a big section of sidewalk over by the western end of the Staples building next to the bowling alley. BID is paying for a bike patrol during the business day and early evening throughout its area. 2 security officers go around and try to get our homeless population to move on and not block things, look for crime, deter break-ins. And it seems to be working. They've got results. Stakeholders are talking about it. Businesses are talking about it, so it's all good. They had a car patrol late at night, really wasn't doing anything, so they canceled that, and that frees up funds so they can have more bike patrols later on Friday and Saturday, which are the busiest times for activity, as it were. The BID president is resigning. They formed a committee to propose replacement of new members, and they were happy that the SCNC was reaching out to restore previous good working relationship between the two bodies. Bank was interesting as always. The mayor's rep was supposed to be there to talk about the mayor's Green New Deal. They didn't show. The Census 2020 was there. This time around for the census, you're going to get a postcard and they're going to encourage you to do your stuff online. The questions were asked about how secure, and then if you don't respond to that, they'll send you paper. Questions were, they told us the thing was secure, but they weren't sure whether or not they'd capture and keep people's ISP data. They weren't sure how the data was going to be stored, and they were rather vague on what they were doing to prohibit fraudulent entries. It wasn't really reassuring to a lot of us. The census data has to go to the president no later than 31 December 2020, and then to the states and cities in early 21 for redistricting use, which is one of the major reasons to have the census. Southeast City Planning Update. There's drafts available online at the webpage, and public feedback and input is solicited which can be done online. That's both from all y'all out there and from this body. City Attorney's Victim Assistance Program. There's info about them online. They handed out flyers to those who wanted them, and there are reps assigned to every LAPD station. So if you or anybody you know is a victim of crime, the city attorney has a program there to help you with counseling, funding, whatever they can do. Budget advocates, we want and need the items from the community for them to consider at their meetings. A lot of times the budget advocate comes, gives a report, and doesn't get anything to take home with things, interests the community has in changing funding or that they want to see better taken care of. It would behoove us to come up with a list of those things. The next time when an advocate comes, we can give feedback. And Bonk is considering censure and removal verbiage which will be handed out and put into every neighborhood council's bylaws. And they're also talking about increased mandatory training and for things like leadership, empowerment for women and minorities, dispute resolution, a whole laundry list of things to do. An interesting council files is provided by one of the members who attends. Council file 180467, this is the, by Councilman Rue, the whole council file about reorganizing, improving, et cetera, the neighborhood council. This was a report from 20 August 19 about developing resources for the neighborhood council system, implementing training and conducting further analysis on systems governing structure. August 29th, there was a request to the city attorney for a ruling on minimum age to run for and vote for board seats. Currently, they're talking about 16 or possibly even 14, which would be interesting. Council file 19-1915, city attorney's report R19-0257 relative to a draft ordinance to amend the LA Municipal Code to enhance the city's remedies against illegal dumping. And we see that every end of the month at the apartment houses, so it might be something we need to look into. 19-0973, the motion instructs the chief administrative officer and chief legislative analyst to coordinate with the personnel office on the feasibility of creating a process where exempt mayoral council staff could transfer to a civil service position in the city apartments. And 17-0090S8, Prop HHH Administrative Report 0220055151-009, Permanent Supporting Housing Loan Funding Project. It's 125 pages if anybody's interested. And those were the nuggets I found in about 6 hours worth of meetings. You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, and with that, without objection, the August meeting minutes are now filed. Everyone look over them. 3, 2, 1. Filed. All right, moving on to number 3, the public comments. I want to invite up first our new field representative from Assemblymember Nazarian, Logan Smith.
Hi, folks. I'm going to stand if that's okay, because I want to address the folks over here and the folks over here. My name is Logan Smith. I'm the new field representative with Assemblyman Nazarian's office, representing Studio City, Toluca Lake, and North Hills West specifically. So you'll be seeing me here pretty much every month to provide updates on what Assemblyman Nazarian is doing for the folks here in the district, and here specifically in Studio City. We just wrapped up the legislative session up in Sacramento. I believe they adjourned the session at 3:07 a.m. On Saturday. Assemblyman Nazarian has 9 bills waiting to be signed on the governor's desk, covering everything from protecting long-term care benefits for seniors to expanding our resources to combat homelessness here in the San Fernando Valley. There's an event coming up as well on the 28th of this month. That's going to be at the Treat People Conference Center in Coldwater Canyon Park. It's an opportunity to go hiking with Assemblyman Nazarian and Councilmember Paul Kokorian. A great opportunity to chat one-on-one with them, pick their brains, share your concerns. And like I said, I will be here pretty much every month. I don't have business cards yet to hand out. It's my very first day in the office. And they said there was a meeting going on in Studio City, and I said, well, I want to go meet people. So I'm going to stick around for a bit. Happy if you want to chat, pull me aside. I'll give you my number, give me your card if you've got one. Let's talk, and looking forward to do what we can to ensure the best possible service to folks here in Studio City. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Logan.Smith at
Logan.Smith3193 @gmail.com right now. That's my personal email. Feel free to bother me there anyway. It's not bothering me. I will have an assembly email set up real soon and cards to give you all next time I'm here.
Thank you very much. All right, let's move on to Estefina.
3193.
Did I get that right?
Estefania. You're so close.
Sorry, I usually try to get that right.
Hi. I don't know if it's on, but my name is Estefania Palacio. I work for the Audubon Center at Debs Park. We're a nature center up in northeast Los Angeles, and we've recently begun doing some work at the Yaroslavsky Greenway, LA River Greenway Trail, mouthful. I just kind of wanted to give you guys, introduce myself and give you guys an idea of some of the work that we're doing up there. So we've partnered with MRCA to beautify, restore, and maintain that park, and our ultimate goal is to create a little core of stewards living in that community to help us maintain that. We're really excited to get involved with this community. We're from a little bit a ways away. And part of our work is to hopefully engage with students from local schools, so Campbell and Harvard Westlake. As of last week, we have just finished hosting our second volunteer service event at the park. Both events were really well attended. We have 25 people at least at each event. And we're making really good progress. Starting at the end of the trail off of Whitsett, we're planning to make our way down the Greenway to Coldwater Canyon Avenue. And yeah, just wanted to introduce myself and give you some opportunities to get involved, y'all. And sorry, my back is to you. We're hosting volunteer events once a month, planned for the second Saturday of every month. Our next event is on October 12th, starting at, I want to say 8 a.m., 8 to 11, so it's not too hot. Yeah, that's kind of what we're doing. If anyone has any questions about the work that we're doing, I'll also be sticking around for a little bit, so feel free to pull me aside. Yeah.
There are pictures now of our work last Saturday up on our SCNC Facebook page.
On your Facebook page?
Yes,
Yeah,
And
awesome.
we've got more coming because I just got a link today. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
You said northeast Los Angeles, that's a big piece of land. Where exactly?
We're in Highland Park.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Moving on to Allie Spostalezer.
She just stepped out.
Okay, then moving on to Barry. All right, well, that's all the public comments I have. So moving on to number 4, we've been told inexplicably that we can no longer do responses to public comments by board members. Moving on to number 5, Jessica's not here. So moving on to what everyone is here for, the appointment of new SCNC board members. So let's bring up our first candidate. This is for the residential renters position. On for it.
Hello, my name is Lana, and I have participated with the Neighborhood Council previously for about 3 terms, close to 6 years was the tenure as a board member. In that capacity, I served on the Cultural Affairs Committee as well as the Outreach Committee, and I also served a term as the secretary on the Executive Committee for the board. The phrase is you learn something every day, right? Maybe something new, I don't know, maybe things are reinforced as well. But during my time with the board, I did learn a great deal and would love to support this council and their ongoing efforts in our community on behalf of the residential renters. So I appreciate your time and consideration of me to come aboard and to join you in this adventure that we call the Neighborhood Council program. Thank you so much.
Quick question, is there anyone else here who wanted to apply for this seat?
Anybody?
Great. Anyone have any questions before?
Public comment? Or comment? Having been around the board longer, just about anybody except maybe Barry and Richard Niederberg, I can testify that Lana shows up, works, she's a goer and a doer, and has experience, something this board can always use more of. And she'd be a handy resource for her current secretary. I know she'd be an asset for those of us on outreach, and I strongly urge all of you to vote for her. We need more people like her.
Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Yes, please.
So I've known Lana for 6 years now, and as the chair of the land use committee, she is my secretary and a committee member, and extremely reliable, wonderful energy, a woman of her word, just an asset to this board. And I support you being on our board with us.
Thank you, Lisa.
Can you comment? Yeah, Richard.
Yes, she's helped me in the last 5, 6 maybe luminarias. She's both spoken and she's actually done a lot of work behind the scenes, and I appreciate that, so she's very reliable. Thank you.
Even if she supports the wrong football team.
Yes, Barry.
From Alabama.
I ditto to everything everyone said so far, and it's like every time we do any kind of special event, she's always there, and she's there longer than just about anyone.
Thank you.
I move to vote.
All in favor for Lana to be appointed to the residential renter seat?
Wow.
Congratulations, you're
Thank
back on the
you.
board.
Thank you.
She's got to run to an event, but.
I do have a previous commitment, because speaking about commitment, so thank you much, and I look forward to seeing each and every one of you again very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please take a seat.
Oh, she's
She's got to run to a thing, but.
Event
Okay.
that I already committed to.
Bye.
Drive friendly.
All right, moving on to the youth member seat, which is very exciting. Can we bring up Mira? Everyone got her statement?
Hello, my name is Mira Kaplan. My mother is on the board as a residential homeowner. I have lived in Studio City my entire life, and I feel that I'm very involved in my community, and I would like to be more involved. And I care a lot about what this board is trying to do, and I think that we could make more effort in terms of environmental progress, and stuff like that is what I'm interested in, so, yes.
Any questions? All right, let's move to a vote then. So all in favor of Mayor Kaplan? Great. Congratulations, welcome to the board. You can have a seat up here, you can stay down there if you'd like. So, I'm gonna circle back real quick to number 3. Ally, public comment?
Yes, and I'm actually not going to make a very serious public comment here because I need to get a shot for Facebook of our whole board that is present right now. So if everyone can go pile behind Tony and Brian, that would be super. Actually, nobody move yet. Squish in. I've got 2 minutes. I'm going to get creative. All right.
We're actually, Jesse Porter is running behind. Can we get it when?
If we can return to item 3 then, sure.
Sure. All right, moving on to number 7, the briefing on emergency sewer repair NOS 28 Phase 2 from the LA Sanitation and Environment Clean Water Program Outreach Team. Clean Water Program Outreach. Come on up. Play a little waiting music here.
Thank you very much. Of course. Yeah, I'll
What they put you on.
We ready? Yeah. Great. All right, item 7. Hit it.
My name is Josh Winters. I work with LA Sanitation as part of the community outreach team for this project. From the Bureau of Engineering, we have Hector Hernandez and Celso Perez, our project leaders for this phase 2 of ESR NOS 28. And then I have my colleague Allison Arnold, who's on with me as a community outreach team member. I'm going to pass it off to Hector and Celso so that they can discuss the project scope and our impact to that community.
So the biggest landmark on here, so everybody gets
an idea of where we're at the intersection of the 101 freeway and Vineland Avenue. That's the tail end of the project. The project is depicted with these hatch marks. It's on Acoma. It starts at the intersection of Acoma and Elmer. And the reason that area there is highlighted is because that is going to be an entire full closure. So access to residents, it will be the only access in there. It'll be down, we're giving it about 3 months, and that's because that portion needs to be open cut, meaning the street gets excavated and new pipe gets installed. The rest of the project, which is the entire project is about 2,000 linear feet. The radius section is about 300. So the remainder is going to be what's called slip line. Basically, you open a section at the top of the existing pipe, you insert new pieces, and push them along. And that's what's going to keep that pipe intact for another 50 plus years. So the schedule right now is September 2019 through September 2020.
Great, any questions?
When were the original pipes installed?
It's about 8 years old.
So that'd be, what,
1920.
I was over the fifth grade at 100 in my math, but 2019 minus 80 is.
Reason is this alignment.
1939, 29?
This alignment.
88 years.
This alignment is 88. 1920 we started building it.
Yeah.
So the sewer system is from the valley all the way to Siberia and the ocean is built in that age. So I don't know where exactly this particular thing starts.
Well, they weren't originally lead like the Romans, were they? Sometimes lead?
No
Or
lead.
they look kind of,
No
the
lead.
Romans actually had lead.
Okay, we're gonna move on to Barry.
Fall of the Empire.
Barry, we're gonna move on to Barry.
I was just gonna say, these guys have been great during phase 1, which I live near. And it's fascinating how they put liners inside the old sewer. They don't take anything out, they just put liners in. And I'm almost curious what you use as lubricant to get those liners going, but I guess it's probably sewage.
It is the sewage, so the pipes themselves, and we've got an illustration of how they're installed.
Excuse me, can we also see, because
These buoyant, they're
we don't see
Can you
anything.
twist it over here for a second?
they're fiberglass, so they have an amount of buoyancy to them, so they literally float down.
And just 2 other quick things. Our neighborhood has been trying to get Film LA to not do any shoots like 1 block either side of your project, because they did, and it's, when you guys are working and they're there, it's just not a good thing. And
It is congested, correct, yeah.
Government has priority.
And the other thing I was just gonna say is, I discovered that the contractor was putting up a sign to sell dirt in the first phase, and I reported it to them, and they got the contractors in trouble for selling dirt that belongs to us, the taxpayers, and it was stopped, so thank you.
They were selling it? I thought it said.
It was a phone number, but I called it, and when you called it, I said, are you giving it away? No. And he said it costs money, so I knew, that's when I reported it.
Any more quick questions? Great, well, thank you for coming.
Well, if anybody also, if you think of any questions in the meantime, on Monday at 6 p.m. we will be having a community kiosk meeting right at that intersection of Elmer and Acoma. So if anybody wants to come hear a little bit more about the project, if you think of any questions, or if you know anybody who could make it tonight that might be interested in information, just let them know. 6 p.m. is Monday.
Appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving on to number 8, the treasurer report by Rick Rosner.
I have very little. We've got a motion coming up to pay for our phone services. We get a great deal from CBS where mostly what we pay for is like $3 a week for phone service. And that and internet service. That's it.
Cool, and so we have a motion here. You want to read the motion?
Comment real fast. A piece of information I got at a meeting recently, there is an agency in our building, has an office space slightly larger than ours, and they're being billed $1,500 a month for a room that we get for
Not
Nada. It behooves this organization to mend and keep our relationship with CBS as good as possible. Otherwise, we'd be shelling out that kind of money every month, which makes it harder to give grants, hold advice, and everything else. Just personal observation.
Is that public comment from Barry?
Yes.
All right, great. Great, well, want to read the motion? Well,
two motions, really.
Well, let's do the first one.
The first, the Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council has reviewed the monthly expenditures report for August, hereby accepts and approves the report. Second motion, Board of the Studio City.
Let's vote on one first.
Okay.
All right, so we're moving to a vote. So can we do a roll call on this?
Yeah, so, Richard?
I have to abstain because Dunn never let me get my training done.
Oh, that's true.
Oh.
Yes, look how moral.
Brian?
Good. Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Randall?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Raduca?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Richard? And?
Yes.
Jesse?
Abstain.
Rick?
Yes.
Alexa?
Yes.
Adam? Yes. Tony, yes. Yusuf? And
Great, motion passes. Moving on to motion 8B.
The Board of the SCNC reauthorizes the payment of the following monthly recurring expenses for financial year 19 through 20. Website maintenance by Web Corner not to exceed $200 a month, and telephone services by CBS not to exceed $25 a month.
Move the motion? Yeah.
Comment on this. I think moving forward, we know our $200 worth of Web Corner will be spent and used and not just thrown away. And I would vote in favor of this motion and the previous if I was allowed to.
All right, we're gonna move this to a vote, so roll call.
Brian?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Randall?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Raduca?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Richard N?
Yes.
Jesse?
Yes.
Rick?
Yep.
Alexa?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
Tony, yes. Yusuf?
Great, motion passes. Thank you very much. And moving on to number 9, the Transportation Committee report by Barry Johnson.
This is a handout for 9B. So I'm just going to go straight to the motions. 9A, a couple of us spent like 12 years trying to get money from the Plan Review Board to put in the sidewalks in Studio City that were missing. And in fact, of the 17 miles of Ventura Boulevard, only Studio City had some missing sidewalks. And now about 90% of those missing sidewalks are done. But we have one section left by Enterprise Rent-A-Car, which somehow they have to actually contact the property owner, not the business owner. And the property owner has not been found yet. And I want to nudge the council office to find them because the money's there to complete the sidewalk. There's a bus stop near there. People get off and there's no sidewalk if they're in a wheelchair. So this motion is just to nudge our council office to do the homework, find out the owner or owners of it may all be owned by one person or it could be several. These are consecutive addresses. Some of you may have seen where the gap exists by Enterprise Rent-A-Car. So that's what, I'll read the motion. The Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council requests Councilmember Paul Krikorian to make contact with the property owners of 11571, 75, 77, 11591, and 11601 Ventura Boulevard in order to complete the only missing sidewalk on Ventura Boulevard in Studio City.
Great, sorry about that. Great, so the only public comment on this is yours?
Yeah, I don't have one.
I figured. Any other board question before we move to a vote? Yes, Richard?
I'd just like to note that having talked with the council office about this project where they've been doing sidewalks, the contractor has been so efficient and so frugal with the money that the amount that was originally apportioned to do the area there just east of Colfax and north side, they got more done than they originally planned for with the money because the contractor will probably never be allowed to work for the city of Los Angeles again, is giving us more bang for our buck. So I urge we go ahead and go with this.
And one thing you should know that we found out in 12 years is that putting in sidewalk where there was never sidewalk is different and budgeted different than sidewalk repair.
I'm not surprised.
Question. Is there a way to find out who they pay, the business, who they pay their monthly rent to?
I was thinking of walking into Enterprise and see if they'll tell me who their landlord is. The other thing, I believe any real estate agent can find.
title.
Yeah,
You can pull title, that's not hard.
yeah.
Go to the assessor's website and see what's there.
So I know some real estate agents, I may try that too.
Yeah.
Do you know any good ones?
Any other board questions before we move to a vote?
Please make sure you have a board member to make a motion and a second.
For every motion?
Well, no, if they come from a committee, they do not require a second. Unless
Yeah,
it's
this was
done as
vetted, this was
vetted
vetted in
rules.
committee.
Oh, okay.
All of this stuff was.
All right.
Except for the last one, which I'm probably gonna table. All right, so, all in favor of motion 9A? It's unanimous. Thank you.
All right,
Motion 9B.
9B, actually, the handout I gave you is from almost 8 years ago. And we were the first neighborhood council at the time to chime in on having a real subway under the Santa Monica Mountains from Sherman Oaks to Westwood. And I'm proud to say we were the first. And at the time, Metro didn't know what they were talking about, I felt. They were trying to put light rail through a tunnel that is like 3 cars and doesn't hold anything like a red line subway, and it doesn't go as fast. So I'm just pleased that somebody listened. And Sherman Oaks, as well as Encino, have recently done similar motions to this. And the reason it is worded as such as we are supporting the line, which would have a station at Ventura and Van Nuys Boulevard. It would start at the orange line, come down Van Nuys Boulevard, and then once it leaves Sherman Oaks, it tunnels to Westwood. There's a UCLA, a Westwood. It then connects to the Expo line, and then eventually it would go from the Expo line to somewhere in LAX to connect with the new monorail there. So, and also one going under the tunneling from Sepulveda, but it adds distance, and it's the fastest, and the heavy rail carries the most amount of people. And some have said, well, where's the money gonna come from? Well, Metro, you're gonna have to go shopping for money this time. The Valley has been shortchanged on Metro funds for 20 years, and it's time that we get our share. We have 40% of the population of LA. We have 10% of LA County's population, and Metro covers LA County. There's no way we get 20% of the money in the Valley. So and this benefits the other side of the hill too. So it's time for them to cough up the money. They have a lot of avenues. We have voted them all kinds of money, and we're not seeing a return here. So it's time that they step up to the plate and give us something similar to the red and purple lines under the busiest corridor in the United States.
Any more questions before we move to a vote? Great, I move to do a vote. All in favor of motion 9B? All opposed? It's unanimous. Great, thank you so much, appreciate it. All right, moving on to number 10, Public Safety Committee report by the one and only Michael Piscatelli.
What's happening, everyone? How's everyone doing? Trying to make this fast as well. Oh, here are my notes right here. All right, so, like I do every time, PS Committee, we are on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Everybody behind me. The handles are at Studio City PS. We get information out, timely, lots of it, and we talk on there as well. You guys are doing great, actually, with the website's looking wonderful out there, so. And the Facebook as well is up and running, so you guys are great. We had an eye-opening and informative meeting with the gang unit last week. They did a presentation, what they do, gangs in our area. We unfortunately only had about 15 people with about 2 new folks, and we promoted the heck out of this all month long here on Twitter, on Instagram, on multiple Facebook sites, on Nextdoor twice, on the SCNC calendar, posted here at CBS and through lacity.org. Well, we got some advice. We will be trying to move our meetings to Walter Reed. So we just started looking into that tonight. That takes a lot of forms to fill out, committee meetings. And I don't mean board members, committee meetings need to be over by 9:30 at latest. So we'll see if that gets more people coming, even though we've had some events at Studio City Library and it's still iffy. So we will see if that gets more people coming out. I do want to ask each and every one of you though, please grab an Instagram, grab a Twitter, so we can all hook up. In fact, all committee chairs should also have these as well, and it's a pain in the butt for the first 2 seconds of getting up and running, but then it takes 5 seconds in the morning as you're making coffee to retweet one of my posts, to retweet one of the homeless committee posts, to retweet outreach. It takes 2 seconds, and the more people that are doing this, the more we can reach everyone else out there. So I think that would help as well, and we'll all have fun doing it. The CEASE team, which is a community volunteer program with LAPD, which I do promote often because I'm on it. They had numerous arrests. Most notable last week was a man in this area who stole a $2,000 bicycle and was caught. He also mentioned many other crimes he'd done in this area, and he was shipped back, I believe, to Tennessee. So I'm letting you know about the CEASE program that we have. Again, this is on all of our social media sites. You can download the forms. We've already recruited Rachel. I believe we're trying to recruit Randy as well, so if anybody wants to, again, like social media, it is a lot in the very beginning, but then you can do nothing if you don't want to. But it does help clean up the city. And I think that's about it. October 10th is our next meeting, and thank you everyone, and keep up the good work.
Barry, public comment.
I was just gonna say, over the years, I have seen fluctuation in attendance, and a lot of times when back to school time hits, there's a dip. Thanksgiving to Christmas, there's a dip. Sometimes around spring vacation and sometimes at the beginning of summer. So it's not that Michael's doing anything wrong with promoting or anybody else is. It's just these dips occur, you know, when people are busy with other things.
I'm with you on that. Richard.
Yeah, and I would say, I read Nextdoor more than I participate in it, like all social media. But there was much whining on the section of Nextdoor I see about no one told me, we didn't know. But I wore a uniform for 21 years. There's somebody who always doesn't get the word, and how many times the first sergeant of SEAL put it out. So you're doing your best, and you know, there's not much you can do about people.
Well, thank you. I just want to back that up. Is that, yeah, Peter did put that out there, and a lot of the community came in there, and some couldn't, of course, some said they didn't know, but again, with all the outreach, there really is opportunities.
I was a bank.
Yeah, no, you're all good.
Hey, Michael, what is there a list of all the handles for the different committee chairs who do have?
There's no list for the moment that I know. I think only one other committee might have one.
What did you say yours was?
Ours is at Studio City PS. Okay. So that's on Instagram, that's on Twitter, and with Facebook, it's /Studio City PS. We post on everything else next door as well, as where, you know, we all have that conversation. But if anybody else would just get their stuff up and running just quickly, you know, I don't know.
We started cross-posting.
I'm sorry?
We're starting to cross-post with each other.
Great, thank you. I love it. See, perfect. So that's all it is, and we can all do it. So.
We're good.
Are you planning to post the events at what is it you said Walter Reed you're gonna go to?
Which one? Walter Reed. Yeah.
So are you gonna, because I think that's a good way of reaching parents. Because parents, I think, would want to be involved with public safety, but we're gonna do more about it with outreach, so I think it's a great idea to go and have meetings at a school.
Perfect, I'm with you on that. Some of the feedback we got is that on school nights, like Barry's saying, some of the times are not beneficial to people with kids to come on out on Thursday nights, Tuesday nights, or whatever. So we'll do our best to facilitate more people coming in there, what with ease.
But are you involving the school or you're just renting from the school? My point is, can you find some form of collaboration with the school?
We are talking with the school district, with LAUSD, and it's generally easy, we just have to fill out some forms. But again, what comes with it is 9:30, gotta be done. So 7 to 9:30, it will be free for us as far as I understand it now, because obviously.
But what I meant is not just renting space, actually collaborating with PTAs or some other parts of the groups within school that will promote it as well.
I haven't thought about that, great idea.
When I reached out to the individual schools, at least administrative staffs, they all said once the school year starts, they'd be willing to post about our meetings in their newsletter. And I checked back in and I haven't got any confirmation from anybody specifically, so I'm hoping this month. So then hopefully we can have a spot in the different schools' communications. Sure. With parents, they could give us a little shout, depending on what we're doing, if there's specific events or events that, like the one you threw, so.
I think that's great.
We'll see if outreach can get that going.
I think that's wonderful, I can put you in contact with who Rachel dug up.
And who again did you use to procure the arrangement for Walter Reed?
Rachel, who's?
What was his, because he came here, right?
Yeah.
David.
Scott.
Yeah.
Scott, right?
Yes.
I forget, I have his card, but what was his last name? Just
Hold on.
Maybe this can be an offline
Okay.
conversation.
Yeah. With that
This is not
said-
really.
I have a quick follow-up for you. There was a lot of interest on Nextdoor about what the gang unit had to say.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you didn't record their presentation, but do they have a PowerPoint or something else that you get from them that could be put out so people at least get the basic information?
While they can't get that out there, we may try to put another one together sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
But
the LAPD's point of view, it might be upset.
and just so you know, so we didn't record it because of course it's information that we don't want to get out to the gangs. We didn't record it for that. One of the guys has a hit on him as well, so the security here at CBS, that would not have changed our location one bit. As far as putting people through security to come here, because I don't want to put out something that is public, obviously, when it says police officers are going to be here and they're the ones that are arresting you. So, for safety's sake, this is why we did it here anyways.
If the report's classified, I have absolutely zero problem with that.
Cool.
Yeah, they might be able to come up with an unclassified one.
Yeah, as far as releasing it?
Yeah.
I can ask them.
Yeah, just tell them to redact whatever they need to redact and.
Some photos have, all of them are real gangsters in this area, so some photos do have things. All right.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nope. Yeah.
In the past, it's become very expensive to rent school property. Are you getting a good deal?
Free. I'm with you at the Studio City Library when people said maybe at the library, because after 8 o'clock, it becomes, what, $200 or so?
$216.
Yeah, so that's not something that we can do. So he said it was free. We do have to fill out something every 6 months, depending on the school things that happen afterwards, whether it's soccer or anything, if they're using the spot. That's something that we have to work around, of course, like the Studio City Library.
Wherever you mean, the library, the auditorium, what?
I don't know yet. Auditoriums don't get used, he did say that,
It's too big.
That's the family bits.
Guys.
Right, so anyways, so that's how it is. I will send you David's contact as well.
Or Scott.
Or Scott.
Yes.
Thank you very much,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
The brains of the outfit.
Just a brief
Can you
comment
do a
on-
comment card for what?
I just want to comment on the $216 to rent the library. That is the cost of the security guard, but if he has a presentation from some important person who wants to come address the community, the board could afford that.
No, we just have other.
Okay, we gotta move on. So, Budget Committee report by Patrick Lewis. Thank you.
Yes. I noticed that you took one of them off, did he get paid back already?
Because, well, we voted on it last month and it passed.
We did, okay, sorry, I didn't get that.
But I have not actually received anything yet, just to be clear.
Fair enough, but.
Yeah. All right, so, motion A, Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council approves an MPG of $1,000 to parents, educators, teachers, and students in action for ongoing services related to the Los Angeles Police Department Juvenile Arrest Diversion Program. I believe they were here last month too, so you guys all heard that already. Their original request was for $5,000. We put it down to $1,000. If you guys feel like that's an appropriate number, you can vote on that. If not, someone is always entitled to make a friendly amendment and change the amount.
Barry, public comment.
No thanks.
Any board questions on this? Richard?
If I could vote, I'd vote for 1,000. If it had been 5,000, I would have been against it and wanted it to be lower. But 1,000, it does affect some of the youth in our community. They said they have a very low recidivism rate. You know, $1,000 probably fairly well spent.
I would just chime in and say that as a reminder that when the gentleman was pressed when he made his presentation, he basically said that he's waiting on money to come from the city and he doesn't really need our money, but for the check hasn't come yet. So given that, I don't know why we would want to give any money to the program when he's already has, I think it was $150,000 coming from the city and he's simply waiting for that check.
I'd forgotten about that. You have a good point.
I think he's been waiting quite a long time though for that money, so I
Yeah, he
think
didn't seem to give any indication that it
Yeah,
was
it's been a
coming soon.
while.
But that's not on us.
No?
It's not, but
No,
it
just
affects
for
our
nothing.
kids.
Well, I would move to vote on this as is, unless someone wants to make an amendment to it. Yes, Richard Niederberg.
Yeah, I noticed that the other neighborhood councils in this area are not putting money in, and that might be a symbol as to a direction that because they've also had a chance to look at this. You know, I've looked at it as a judge in bad eyes, and it doesn't seem like this case the county, but neither the city, was getting very much bang for their money out of this particular program. I'm not saying it's bad, it just doesn't seem to work in the area that I dealt with, which is Van Nuys.
Anybody else before we move to a vote? Can you fill out a public comment resolution?
Sure, yeah, but then they get you 5 security guards at the library. But I think it's a good organization.
All right,
Okay,
let's, I'm gonna move to a vote. So this is roll call for financial.
Okay, Brian,
No.
Michael,
No.
Randall,
No.
Alex. No. Reduka,
No.
Lisa,
I abstain.
Richard,
No.
Jesse,
Yes.
Rick,
Abstain.
Alexa,
Yeah.
Adam,
Yes?
Tony, yes, Yosef.
Yes.
Does not pass. All right, moving on to motion 11B.
Okay, 11B, Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council approves the funding request from the Land Use Committee Chair for a fold-up life-size outline map of Studio City. Life-size is not the correct. But anyways, Studio City.
Duck, everyone.
Lisa, do you want to explain
Try
that?
and get it as big as I can.
Yeah.
I just want to see you move
Squeeze
it.
that $300.
I want to see you move that sign that big.
I hope it's as tall as me.
Do you want to go and explain a little bit for everybody?
I just need a fold-up, really big map of the area that we cover in land use, so that I can just mark off where the areas are that we're working it with and make presentations here a lot easier.
Motion, motion to strike the word life-sized.
Second.
Okay, then public comment from Barry.
I was just gonna say I would not get a fold up, I would get it on a foam board, so you can put it on an easel, and you can store it in the closet there, because we have all these windows that you can't hang something up on, and on foam board, you can put it on an easel, and I believe Department of Planning will sell you exactly this,
Yes, I
because
looked
during the
into it.
RFA, we had one that was like 3 or 4 feet tall and about 7 or 8 feet wide, and it showed like every single property in Studio City.
Which is great, because when I was at the community update meeting,
Like
they had
that.
this gorgeous map.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a good idea. I mean, as I exchanged an email with somebody about this, we were all laughing at life size. But it was good-natured laughing, okay? Relax. But when you come to the land use meeting, you know your neighborhood, you know the part you travel through, you know the part you work in if you work here. And then they rattle off such and such address on Sunswept.
Right.
Where the hell is Sunswept? Oh, that. And the same with all the other ones. What's the one on Alcove, down here by Marshall's? I had to look that address up, it's right there. I go by it all the time. I never use that street, I didn't know the name. And I second the idea of contacting the city, we can get exactly what we want, have an official city seal on it, somebody can complain it's wrong. If they do, it's somebody else's fault. And it'll probably be cheaper to get it going over at Arnold's.
Yeah, we have some, but they're not huge. They're in the office right now, 2 hardback ones. Maybe this big, about this big, but they're not the really big sizes you want.
And he's on the land use committee.
Let's move to vote.
I'm going to make one. Do you want to take out fold up as an amendment?
No, I want to keep my option.
Great, let's move to vote then. Roll call.
Okay, Brian,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Reduka,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Richard,
Yeah,
Jesse,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Alexa,
Yes.
Adam,
Yes.
Tony, yes, Yosef.
Great. Motion passes. Moving on to motion 11C.
Okay, motion 11C, Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council approves an MPG of $2,000 to the North Hollywood Interfaith Food Pantry. I'm gonna have Barbara come up and explain this more, but I'll just say before we do that, this has been something we kind of supported through the years, so this is not out of the ordinary.
Hi, thank you. My name is Barbara Javits. I'm the incoming director of the North Hollywood Interfaith Food Pantry. Forgive my back. We're an all-volunteer organization consisting of 14 churches and synagogues. We've been around the neighborhood for 35 years. We serve people that are experiencing homelessness as well as seniors and people on the edge of poverty. We're putting out about 250 bags of groceries a week. Right now, our expenses have gone up. We own 2 vehicles, so it's insurance, it's gas. And because philanthropy and donations are down, we're having to buy food because we cannot rely on just donations from the community. So this grant will go a long way in helping us continue our operations. So thank you for the consideration.
Board questions on this? Richard?
not a question, just want to make a statement, is that we have to go through another nonprofit. We are prohibited from doing a gift of public funds. That's why we can no longer do things like the hygiene package we did before. The city yelled at us for doing that, and we had to promise not to do that again. So we have to go through a nonprofit, a fiscal agent, whatever you want to call it, but this does that.
Yes, Rick.
Just, we're a little bit more flush than other neighborhood councils because we don't have to pay rent on our space here. So we're maybe a little better able to afford to do stuff like this.
I have been to the Interfaith Food Pantry on their donation days and I've seen their operation there, and I would recommend that we vote for this motion.
Anything else before we move to vote? All right.
Can I propose a friendly amendment?
Yeah.
Since we're not giving $1,000 to the parents, educators, teachers, and students in action, would we make this 3,000 perhaps?
We actually can't go up. We can only go lower, is my understanding of that, right?
I believe. Yeah, because it wasn't, it's because of the word.
Not very friendly, Brian.
It's a very hostile amendment. All right, I'm gonna move to a vote, so let's roll call.
Brian?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Randall?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Reduka?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Jesse?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Alexa?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
Tony, yes. Yosef?
Yes.
Motion passes, and then finally, motion 11D.
Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council approves the expenditure of $50 for refreshments for the October showing of Coco on Halloween night at the Studio City Library. Mr. Niederberg can explain this further.
Okay, well, every year we try to put a presentation down there. This year we were able to get Halloween night as a night. Also, they already own the film and have the right to show it. Therefore, I thought it'd be a great idea, even though it really deals with Dia de los Muertos, which is that whole period of time, I found it good. The only thing different this year is that normally the Friends of the Library will kick in money through the thing, to pay this. This particular time, the library asked us basically to provide some sort of refreshments. I don't think it's gonna be near the $50, but because that's what they asked for, and they haven't asked for it before, I think it's worthwhile asking for it.
I might have mistyped this, and I think we had agreed on up to 50.
Yeah, not to
right? So,
exceed.
if you want to amend that.
Expenditure of up to 50?
Up to 50, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if we need this much discussion on this, but I do want to point out that, again, Cultural Affairs puts on events like this all the time. They do it without asking for any money. The fact that they're asking for $50 just through a routine process is pretty good. So, if there's no other questions, I'm gonna move to a vote.
I would just say that parents bringing their kids to this instead of trick or treating, $50 worth of free stuff for the kids, make up for the candy they're not getting is the least we can do.
All right, move to a vote. Roll call, please.
Brian,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Reduka,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Jesse,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Alexa,
Yes.
Adam,
Yes.
Tony, yes, Joseph.
Yes.
Great, motion passes. Thank you, Patrick. All right, moving on to Land Use Committee report by Lisa Koresh.
Can you show us on the map what these are?
I know, I wish I had the life-size ones so that I could just point. Need the microphone?
You do.
Do I?
I don't know. Please use it.
Motion 12A, pretty self-explanatory. Pagliacci's Restaurant on Moore Park in Coldwater Canyon. Great restaurant. There have been no complaints. There have been no DUIs coming out of the restaurant whatsoever. They're just renewing their CUB existing beer and wine license. So.
Great. Barry. Eric. Great. Richard Evans.
Yeah, did any stakeholders come to the meeting to talk about the extension, the reapproval?
No.
Okay, because I remember when they first came through, several people from the neighborhood were there and had more than a few concerns, and obviously, since either they moved or
They
they're answering.
complied, yes.
Yeah, so,
There have been no complaints.
The neighborhood council heard this many years ago when they opened, and they played by the rules. So I'm saying, let them do it.
To continue following.
it's better than an empty storefront.
Move to vote?
I'm gonna move to a vote. All in favor of motion 12A? All opposed? Oh. Okay, that's unanimous.
Can I read the motion,
Yes.
just so it's on record?
Right.
The board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council supports the continued use of the existing beer and wine license, CUB expiring, Pagliacci's Restaurant located at 4366 Coldwater Canyon Avenue, ZA-2012-1537. I did learn something along with this motion. All this time, I thought Coldwater Canyon was a boulevard. It's an avenue. Did you know that?
No, I don't think I knew that.
No? It's
I don't
a
think I paid attention.
huge surprise.
Yeah. And so just so I'm not getting ahead of my
You need
seats,
that
if I can
now.
just call that vote again, just because you just
Yes,
read the
please,
motion.
thank
So all in favor of motion 12A? Unanimous, thank you. Moving on to motion 12B.
Okay, motion 12. There's a booklet being passed around with the photograph of the Crescent apartment building on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and introduce, yeah. Here it is for the audience to see. It's located on Arch Drive at Ventura Boulevard. The representatives of the Crescent Building are here, Mike Randall, owner and developer, yes. Julia Sluz, architect associate, and drawing a blank, Jonathan Riker, land use consultant. So I have a history with these lovely people, is that when they first purchased this property, they did come to Councilmember Krikorian's office and wanted to get involved with the community in having their input right from the beginning. So this was, I looked at my records, and this was starting back in December of 2017. So I met with them in January of 2018 over at the office when they pitched this project. I being the one who is always pushing for change, modernizing the community, as well as beautiful design, I was very excited about it right from the start. And then they went off for about a year and a half, did a lot of work, is what you see in the booklet, and then got back in touch with us in July. They came in to meet with the Land Use Committee in August, where we heard their pitch, and we had some comments, constructive criticism. So they took all that information and reworked the apartment building and the project itself. Our concerns were with height and parking. So they came back in September, which was last week, having taken all of our concerns into consideration and reworked the project itself. So, does everyone picture where this is at Arch? Can you picture Marshall's on Ventura Boulevard? Right next to it, there was a assisted living space, right? So that's been shut down for a while. And this is what is gonna go up in its place, along with a row of apartment buildings that are about the same height, if not maybe just a little bit shorter. So,
Lisa, out of curiosity, I live right around there, and even though that's an abandoned building, I always see, like, I don't know if it's security guards or somebody's there. Is that through?
it's not an abandoned building, it's a
Oh.
vacant building with a security guard guarding it 24/7.
Just,
Well, for homeless, not to set up camp.
okay.
Just making sure that the public is safe.
Mm.
The neighbors are safe from anyone just
Okay, I was
squatting.
just curious about
Yeah,
that, thanks.
squatting in the building.
How many parking spaces are
Yes.
built into this plan?
So I'm gonna get to that, I'm gonna explain, and then they're gonna be able to answer any of your questions, yeah.
How many, the apartment building next to the rundown building, I'm familiar
Yeah.
with both of them. How many units are in that now?
I'm not sure.
Okay, because if you're putting in 12 affordable housing units in this one and we're losing 16, 18, whatever in the other building, maybe people know the answer. That's a net loss for an area that already has problems with enough rentals.
Okay, so let me just start from the ground level on Arch. It's gonna go up 4 stories. So at about 43 feet, 10 inches. And the 5th floor is set back by 18 and a half feet, which makes the building height to 52 feet, or 52 foot 6 inches on Arch. So from Ventura Boulevard, Arch, the driveway to their parking will be on Arch, sloping down into the building. The back of the building faces the river, and it's where they have the majority of their outdoor spaces to basically visually engage with the river. On the riverside, the back of the building goes up 45 feet and then steps back 35 feet and then goes back up another 18 feet, making it a 64-foot building from the lowest point to the highest point in the center of the building. However, measuring it from the street level, the building would be 53 feet, 6 inches, which coincides with some of the other buildings on the block that are above 45 feet to about 55 feet. So they are asking for density bonus and entitlements. And I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Jonathan Riker to go ahead and explain how the density bonus works. Come on up.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Jonathan Riker, Land Use Council.
Is that on?
Let me check. I don't think so. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So just wanted to explain, we're requesting a density bonus project under state law. It's the state density bonus. We're going through a process called an off-menu density bonus. So for those who may not be familiar with it, there's two types of density bonus applications. There's on-menu and off-menu. On-menu requests involve certain types of deviations from the zoning codes, exceedances that are allowed, and they're enumerated in the code. So when you choose those, these are considered on-menu. The process is more administrative. There's no public hearing, and it goes to a planning staff member, and they approve it or not approve it without a public hearing. We're doing a process which is called off-menu, which goes before the City Planning Commission. And particular relief from the height limit, because under an on-menu request, you're allowed 11 feet additional height. With this, because of the slope, and there's just unusual site configuration, we're required to go up to a maximum of 64 feet, which is, the height limit is 45 feet. So it's about 19 feet difference there. And it's only because of the slope. So the building isn't really 64 feet from the street, it's just from the lowest grade point to the top of the building. So that's where our request comes in. Yes?
For perspective, with regard to height, is it higher than the Marshall's building?
I don't know, Marshall's
Yes,
is.
it is.
It's
Yes.
higher, but it's higher.
Okay.
Really quick, we have a public comment from Mike. Said your type? Yes.
Hi, Mike.
I'm a pro developer, I like.
He needs a microphone.
Yes.
Come on over here.
Okay. Sorry about that. I own the property on 4236 Arch Drive. It's a 4-story building, about 45.5 feet high. At the time, that was a little more than usual, because my neighbors were two-story and it was 4-story compared to one building in the middle of the block that was 5-story. So the problem, I like the building, I like the site, but the problem that we discussed there, I bought their building again on Saturday, and there's a problem there from the Marshall, when the down slope comes to Arch and goes down slope right to middle of the Arch Street. There is no
The catch basin?
there is no catch basin there. I thought we needed one, really we need two, because one comes from Marshall, I sent you some pictures. One comes from Marshall, and there's nothing to catch all that water that comes through. It comes right to Arch, and most of the time it comes to my building. So we just sent some pictures. So
thank you very much.
Sure. So you know what? I made some recommendation, and I hope that it's a couple of catch basin and a street light.
Great,
Thank
thank
you.
So those are part of the motion, the catch basin. They are going to have their engineering make sure that all that is caught so that it doesn't damage the street, the sidewalk, and the neighboring buildings. So, any questions? Let's open it up to some questions, yes.
You don't throw any buildings into shadow because you're on the north side of the street and then you got the river, right?
Right. Right. We actually did a shadow study, which showed no significant impacts.
Richard Evans.
A couple of questions. One, and this is something that's just recently arrived in the community. Have you made or are you going to make any allowances for people riding scooters to your building and then just leaving them there? That's something that probably gets considered over because it's recently just come to be an issue in town. And as for the water runoff, is there any reason why you can't run it straight into the LA River like any other storm drain? Or is there some EPA, AQMD, God knows who?
Well, this isn't from them. This is
No.
from Virginia and the Marshalls.
I don't
and
care
it's
where the
coming
water
on-
comes from. Is
Right.
there any reason why you can't just route it straight into the river instead of catch basin? From the catch basin, the water goes where?
Well, that's very good. I mean, definitely make a note of it. and
Yeah,
have
but I
people
mean,
with that.
because if it rains and rains and rains and the catch basin's only this big,
Right.
and it doesn't drain anywhere, it's going to flood. And then you have the problem you were trying to avoid. So, I mean, if there's some sort of water quality issue, you can't just route it straight to the river, which I think there is these days. So maybe just figure out what to do when you have the monsoon rains we get every so often.
In terms of parking, there are 2 levels of parking. There is room for motorcycles, bicycles, scooters.
How many spaces per unit?
So they are proposing 122 parking spaces. 110 spaces will be standard. 4 will be compact, 8 will be tandem.
How many allotted per unit?
Well, that depends.
Studios get
There's-
1 space, 1 bedrooms get 1 space, 2 bedrooms get 2 spaces, but that's just 8 units that are 2 bedrooms.
Right.
Ah.
37 studios with 1 space apiece.
Is it subterranean?
61,
It
1
is.
bedrooms, 1 space.
Thank you, Jesse.
Sure.
Eric.
Just one clarification, the 2-story building apartment next door will be shaded in the afternoon. It's to the east, and the building that's next to it now is a lot shorter than what yours will be. And just one other thing, the fact that if you all approve this, the only way he gets your approval after the fact is if he has addressed and resolved the 3 things on here. So without that happening, that he doesn't have your approval. So keep that in mind.
Michael.
What's the retail space and what's going in there? See, there's a ground floor retail space?
Right,
Yes.
it's 1,200 square foot retail space. We are not sure exactly what we're gonna put in there, but
City wanted a coffee shop.
could be a coffee shop, probably not a coffee shop, it might be
Maybe
more
a
of
convenience store?
convenience store, we're thinking, bakery perhaps. Something with, not a lot of traffic generation, that's a major.
Mainly for the
consideration.
residents.
Right.
Yeah, I have a question. Out of curiosity, with the housing crisis we're in, was 12 the minimum units you had to do for affordable housing?
Well,
Or where did that number come from?
Well, we're actually, in a way, we're providing more than a typical density bonus project because under the rules, you're required to provide a certain percentage based on what they call the base density. So this site, again, it's kind of unusual for several reasons, but we would be actually allowed by right 113 units. And with a density bonus, we could go up to 153. But we just could not cram all those units into this site and create a building that we thought would be, beautiful and, open to the river. As Lisa mentioned, these were considerations that we really thought would be more important than just putting a bunch of units there. So based on that, under the maximum, we would still only be required, it is 11% of the base density is the minimum. So that would be, I believe, 13 units if we did 153 unit building. But we're doing 106 units and we still have 12 affordable units. So it turns out it's a pretty good benefit there for the city. That is not, we're not required to do any more than that, so that is the minimum, but it's in the calculations because we're not going to the maximum density, it does turn out to be what we feel is a pretty good benefit for the city.
Understood.
Eric.
Yeah, affordable means what? And do you have a projection of what a studio, a 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom would be on the market for a studio city?
Well, with affordable, we're providing what they call very low income units. So there's several levels. There's extremely low, very low, and low. under the density bonus rules, we're doing very low. I don't have the figures with me, but the city's housing department, they have rent schedules for the various levels of affordability. As far as the market rate, studio.
What is a studio in Arch Drive? What we must have projected? I mean, how much are we hoping to get on the market for that, at market rate, for example? Or affordable? I mean, affordable sounds like there's a chart, but market rate, I'm sure we're all following closely.
Sure.
So, any idea what that is?
That's the question.
What is market rate for these studios and for the one bedrooms, roughly?
What studios are around 22 to 24, one bedrooms are in the 2000s, approaching 3,000.
That's the affordable housing app?
No.
He's saying that the studio is 22 to 24, and the one bedroom is up to 3. Is that what you're saying?
That's the what we're currently seeing in the market in the area. That's what it's representing. The other piece of this is the low income requirement is for very low, and it's based upon the area median income published by the city, and is a specific chart. So the tenant who is a low income tenant has to qualify, has to continue to qualify, and they pay the rent based upon what the city's chart is. My recollection, this is just my recollection, so I don't have it exactly. It's under $700 for sure.
That,
yeah, that's affordable.
Let me just take
That's
two
my
more,
recollection too.
just two more.
Follow up on a question that Lisa couldn't answer. The apartment building you're taking down to put this up, how many units are in that one?
No.
Oh,
So there's no apartment building.
Okay,
starting here.
Hold on, one at a time. Who's answering this question?
Assisted living space.
Okay, that, but I thought there was a building to the east of it that was an apartment building or something.
No.
Okay.
Just the assisted living building.
Okay, and not the building next to the assisted living.
So there are no residential units that are coming down.
Okay.
I misunderstood.
Yes.
Alexa, and then Joseph, and then can we move to a vote after that?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a hard turn, and I know we've talked about the traffic in this area before, and there's been a lot of deaths of people speeding around because everybody kind of zooms around this curve at Arch. I'm looking at a map. And having cars slow down to make a right or a left onto Arch could pose a little bit of a traffic problem. And I know, they had the inn on the boulevard there prior, but you really didn't have a ton of cars going there because the residents weren't coming and going. They kind of were just living. Was there a requirement of some sort of a traffic study to be done or a report, or how that's going to impact this speedway of a turn that we've got going?
So we conducted a traffic assessment, which the city required, and it was found to be below, the trip generation was found to be below the level requiring a full traffic study, which would require mitigation such as traffic light or other measures. So we were below that threshold, and the city is not requiring any traffic light or anything in addition at that intersection.
Actually, an attractive building like this will slow people down so that they can take a look at it.
Gonna hope that they will.
Yeah, and we're proposing, or asking rather, that they install a street light there to make it a little bit more safe in that corner. And since I'm on the plan review board for the specific plan, Ventura Boulevard, Cahuenga, we are working on something to get the traffic to move slowly in that area.
So this is inside the specific plan boundary?
Hold on, I'm gonna go to Joseph, and then we're gonna go to a vote. Richard.
So my question is, how about the lifespan of the building like that? Could you predict how long you expect it to be there for once you put it there in?
I'm sorry, what was the
Like,
question?
what's the lifespan of the building once they put it in? How long that building is gonna be there for?
A lifetime. So the developers, the owners of the property are owners. They've built over 150 buildings, residential and commercial. They're not flippers. They're not gonna just come in and build a building and say goodbye and leave. They're gonna be part of the community. I've been working on this for a long time. I've been doing my research. I've definitely made sure that something wonderful is going to come into the community. I, for one, this is the forgotten end of Ventura Boulevard. This is going to really revitalize the end of Ventura Boulevard that is dismal, okay? So it's gonna pave the way for other residential buildings to stand up straight and all the businesses to take notice and really have something special there. I'm in full support.
Great. I'm gonna move to a vote on, we gotta read the
May I ask a quick
Yeah.
question?
What?
May I ask a quick question? Lisa, I missed this meeting, as you know, obviously.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I appreciate, one of the major concerns that was raised was about the parking spaces. I appreciate that some additional ones have been added. It's still pretty close to, 1 per unit, which is a little bit concerning. Was there any public comment at the committee meeting? Did anyone show up to speak to that issue at all?
They did, yeah. There
What
were
was the tenor of the-
several neighbors from the area who did come. One being from across the street, who was concerned about his view. But, I mean, it's not even gonna get close to blocking his view. No one from the Riverside came to pose a complaint because the pool is gonna be on that side. They're gonna be doing a lot of work to upgrade that river area with landscaping, making it accessible for the residents to have access to the river. Yeah, and so with parking, they're under actually the requirement for parking spaces in the building.
Or actually,
Okay, can
I'm
we-
sorry.
Can we read the motion and move to?
Yes,
Great.
thank you. The Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council supports the proposed construction of the Crescent, a mixed-use apartment building located at 4260 North Arch Drive, to include 106 residential apartment units, 12 of which will be set aside as affordable housing for low-income households, and 1,200 square feet of ground floor retail space as rendered in Exhibit A, which is the booklet that's been going around, dated 9/11/2019, based upon the following items are addressed and resolved. The street drainage catch basin, the street light, designated area for passenger rideshare pickup and drop-off.
Friendly amendment? Verbiage. Part where it says, based upon the following items being addressed and resolved as opposed to are.
I accept it.
Great. Was it following items being addressed?
Yeah.
Great.
Based upon the following items being addressed. In other words, we support the idea as soon as they address those issues.
Thank you.
Great. All those in favor of motion 12B? All opposed? Is that everybody? Great, it's unanimous, it passes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Board.
And don't
Thank
forget
you.
the scooters.
right.
Motion 12C, take it away.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
The Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council supports 2 wall signs, 2 non-illuminated channel letter wall signs, 58.61 square feet each at Sweet Flower, located at 11701-11713 Ventura Boulevard. Project address 11705 Ventura Boulevard, DIR 2019-4652-SPP. So Sweet Flower on the corner of Colfax and Ventura Boulevard wants to take down those cute signs that they have on the business itself and proposing to put in individual letters spelling out Sweet Flower.
This is a perennial location.
Right. They've done a major renovation, upgrade, very shishi dispensary in the neighborhood.
Lots of glass.
What's that?
Lots of glass now.
Yes, lots of glass. The committee was unanimous in their vote. Love it, it's adorable.
Alexa?
I have a question. They've got 3 signs right now.
Those are coming down, except for the pole sign.
Well, no, they've got 2 on Ventura and 1 on Colfax.
So those are coming down.
So they're replacing all 3 of them, so not 2,
So
3?
just keeping it 2 because of the size of the other. There's only two right now.
No, there's three. There's one on Colfax.
Right.
There's one above Sweet Flower, and then there's one next to the subway sign on Ventura. So there's two on Ventura.
That I'll check into.
You should check into that, and the LA City Municipal Code for cannabis businesses, the advertisement section, states that you are required and you can only have one signage per street. So maybe you should advise them that there's two on Ventura, they should take one of those down and replace it with that. They can have the
I
Colfax
think
in
that's
Ventura.
what they are, if I'm not mistaken, but I will double
Yeah,
check for sure.
double check.
Because I was gonna say, the one on Colfax, I believe, is simply painted on their emblem and the words, which to me pretty much takes it into being a mural
Right.
under the specific
So
plan.
that's gonna be gone.
Which is not the issue.
No, but that was gonna be my issue that I'm
Well, that
not
was
fully
our
conversant in
issue
marijuana
with the
business.
specific- with the
But
specific
it's something I was gonna bring up, because I do fairly well understand the specific plan.
Right.
But if they're taking down the painted mural and replacing with a
Yes.
sign, and they obey with stuff you brought up, then they'd be in compliance. And I know you well enough to know that you make sure that they're, design review board and all that good stuff, that
Yeah.
it's so well. Good enough for me.
Do we move to a vote on this?
Yes.
Great. So, read the motion.
You want me to read it again?
Yeah.
Sorry, I read it.
We can move to a
Jumped the
vote.
gun. Yeah.
Yeah, you did read it. Okay, so all those in favor of motion 12C? It's unanimous, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 13, the bylaws and procedures committee report by Nancy Kramer.
Thank you very much. This is a copy for the recording secretary. Thank you, Mr. President. The motion is Bylaws and Procedures Committee moves to adopt September 9th draft as amended of the bylaws and operating procedures, and if passed, to submit the bylaw amendment application and the Neighborhood Council Board structure change request form to Dunn and Bonk. The amendment to this motion is made by the President, who moves to amend the September 9th draft. The President's amendment is in italics under the committee's page 6, Article 3, Section 1, Paragraph 1. Is there a second?
We're moving right to it, yeah.
I didn't even see the amendment.
We're gonna go right into discussion, I'm gonna be the first, right? So the Bylaws and Procedures Committee, when appointed in June, took on the process to address the following issues. The election process made significant change to address voter and candidate suppression. The grievance process language is pulled from the LA Administrative Code, and it is designed for complaints against the board as a body and does not fully address smaller complaints that are addressed in Robert's Rules of Order. There are contradictions between the bylaws and the operating procedures. And we have rules in our bylaws that, if moved to the operating procedures, allows us more self-direction without the need of approval from Dunn. The intention was to create in the bylaws the most liberal application for Studio City, while still abiding by restrictions from the state and local laws, along with the recommendations by Dunn and Bonk and the spirit of parliamentary process. It was also the intention to make these sister documents that did not repeat or conflict with each other, but rather complement each other. And because of that objective, they are meant to be approved together. The committee has brought each draft to this board since appointed. We have received feedback and discussed those points in committee or simply made corrections as needed to comply with law. The committee had a unanimous vote last week to support these two documents and bring them to the board. We are hoping tonight for unanimous approval so that the bylaws can be submitted to Dunn immediately and we can make our case to Bonk on the value of the bylaw changes. Now, I'm going to ask, when I say your name, if you would please stand. I want you to just think of this as a good stretching moment for yourself, but the support and the contributions that were made in this room. First of all, I would like to thank Eric Previn and Richard Adams. If you guys could please stand and remain standing. Please stand. Yeah, seriously, please stand and
Not on
remain
my
standing.
legs.
Okay, that's fine. These are the two preceding bylaws committee chairmen. Eric did all of the heavy lifting on the election process that was approved by this body during his reign and is generally included in these bylaws. And while serving on the committee under Richard Adams, I was encouraged to begin my research on our governing documents that laid the groundwork for these bylaws and operating procedures. I would like to thank the bylaws committee. Please stand. Eric Previtt, Michael DeLazar, Richard Niederberg, Peter Cole, Brian Carroll. You're not gonna stand? Please stand. We're missing Peter and Richard. And former member Adam Summer for their insightful and intelligent discussions around the rules and the best practices to serve our community. This is the bylaws committee. Now I would also like to thank board members and stakeholders that participated in the process. Some provided historical reference, done and bonk recommendations that I was unaware of, while some attended the meetings and provided general support for the process. Specifically, Alexa Steinberg, Joseph Tishy, please stand, Joseph. Tony Thompson, please stand. Barry Johnson, please stand. And Lisa Sarpin. Finally, I wish to thank our president for his leadership and his passion for the rules. All of these people standing had a voice in bringing these bylaws and operating procedures here today. So thank you very much, everybody, and you can sit down.
Thank you.
I'm done.
Barry, public comment.
As a stakeholder, I had no way, looking at this agenda, to see what this new version is of either document. And it needs to be a document that shows strikeouts for what you're taking out and bold letters for what you're putting in and just normal for letters for everything you're keeping. And I don't see how this can be voted on tonight without all stakeholders having the ability to see that version, which is not on tonight's agenda.
Thank you. Eric.
Yeah, I would just like to say that, I don't know how to address that, but I would just like to say that I want to thank Nancy, who is a very diligent person. And I felt went way out of her way to provide copies of everything, and I believe that there are links, at least today, on the agenda. And I would also say, Barry, that you participated, but I think your point is a reasonable one about the public being informed. I don't know exactly what that means. What would satisfy that, making a photocopy? You can't pin up the 100 pages on the bullet.
A link.
We have a link in the agenda.
But you have to show what's added and what's taken out, and it only shows what's added.
Well, I do appreciate that, but that's not a standard that the city or the county use when they make changes. So I don't know why.
Hold on, let's not do back and forth, let's just.
Yeah, I understand what a red line copy is, and if that should be provided, then that should be provided. I like transparency, so that would be great. But I just wanted to say that Nancy did a great job at, bringing in a lot of disparate ideas, and I think there are multiple other people who worked on it, including Ms. Vicky of the day, and lots of people on these bylaws. And so, I think it's worth taking very seriously, but the appreciation is big for your work, so thanks.
There you go, Lisa, then Richard.
For transparency, I think we should have something to read and look at, right? Aside from the link that's provided.
Table.
Richard. Barry's concerns have been brought to me by more than one stakeholder who I chat with all the time, very long time experience, neighborhood council involvees who know have been over the years the bylaws whisperer and know how things are supposed to be done. And having been involved in submitting bylaw changes previously over many years, everything Barry said is true. That's how the document has to look, or it's going to be sent right back to you.
Any other?
Just to explain, just a question. Has the red strike version of the document been presented during past bylaws that have been amended? I know they've been submitted to the city that way. Have they been voted on with that, with the red strike in place, or is that something we are requiring now?
I would have no knowledge of that. Does anyone have knowledge of whether, yes?
Yes. Because
They were voted on.
if I'm sitting there and I come to you and say, hey, we're gonna be changing things, you cannot make an informed consent on behalf of all those people unless you know exactly this is what was, this is what is, this is what will be.
I'm asking if
But
it's.
yes, it's
I
been
was
a
at
SOP.
all the meetings.
Hold on.
It's been an SOP for as long as I've been active with the neighborhood council and the bylaws committee. Both as just a stakeholder sitting in and a bylaws committee member and then bylaws committee chair.
Any other board? Yes.
I just had a couple, I was going through making that comparison that I guess that seems there, I've worked with people that seems to be missing. I just had questions for clarity maybe. One is as it relates to the rules, the Brown Act and the ad hoc committee. In the 2018 version of the bylaws, an ad hoc committee, the Brown Act, is not applicable with a caveat, with 4 caveats that are, or 2 I should say, that come directly from the city attorney's office. And I'm just curious, that was from 2004, so I imagine it's possible that they had changed that standing, but so I'm just curious as it relates to that, because the only line item as it relates to ad hoc committees that's in the new version is it says the Brown Act is not applicable, full stop. So I'm just curious if you had verified with the city attorney's office that they had amended, because the language that was removed, basically the caveat to that is, for example, if there's a stakeholder that is on an ad hoc committee, then the Brown Act does apply. So I'm just curious if that was an item that was resolved. The second item, or was addressed. The second is, in the new version of the bylaws, in a number of places it simply says, Robert's Rules of Order, page such and such. And my assumption is that that's done for brevity. But if a stakeholder is pulling up bylaws, let's say, and wants to look something up, I think we're being less transparent by then saying that they have to then find and refer to a book. And find the book, whether it's online or go buy it. If we believe in that language that's on that page in Robert's Rules of Orders, it seems to me it would be better just to spell that out and put it on the page. There was also language change as it related to physical posting locations. The old bylaws said neighborhood council's physical posting locations shall be kept on file with the neighborhood council. That was changed to may be kept on file, which again translates to me as it's optional. Why are we making something that's for the sake of the stakeholder optional? My last concern is there was a change that, and reviewing last night, was that the board can meet as much as it would like, but no less than 2 times per quarter is the old bylaws. The new bylaws change that to once per quarter. So again, thinking of us wanting to move business forward for the sake of stakeholders, why would we lessen the requirement for us to meet? So those would be my, and so with all of those considerations, I personally would move to table it and address those things. I mean, and would vote against, but obviously we'll see how you.
I second that.
Hold on.
His points are well raised.
Public comment from Rachel? Tobias?
No, it's just written.
Oh, got it. Should I read this out loud? Or?
No, yeah, it's written.
Yes,
I would second his motion. His points were all very well taken and ought to be addressed in a very transparent form, and some need to be checked with the city attorney's office, which I think you have to do.
So the motion to table, yeah.
May I speak? Yeah. Okay, I would like to address some of these comments, first of all. First of all, I would have appreciated everybody to have read the bylaws as they were being progressed the last 3 months and given me feedback and participate in the process rather than stymie the process at the end. Thank you to all of those of you who did read them and did make feedback and did make comments. In the Empower LA document, it says that submit only the sections with the proposed changes and not the entire bylaws unless there are major changes throughout the bylaws. I do not need to submit a redlined copy because I'm following the directions from Empower LA on their application. As I stated in my opening comments, the intention for the bylaws is to make it flexible to Studio City so that we have the minimum required by the laws, the minimum required in our bylaws, because every time we make a change to our bylaws, we have to then get permission from them. So if we make the minimum required by law in our bylaws, and then we put what we want to do for transparency in our operating procedures. And currently, the minimum required is once a quarter, and I believe our operating procedures, I'm not sure if they keep it monthly or what we decided, but all these questions have been addressed in committee, and it's all these were hot linked. If you got the agenda hot linked or emailed to you, you had access to read them and read the documents. And my phone and my email are everywhere, and I could have been contacted at any time. So I do believe that we have addressed every comment. Am I missing one comment at all?
No.
That
Ad hoc committee.
The ad hoc committee, we need to turn this in, and if they come back and say that there's a problem, but I do believe that the ad hoc committee, and came from one of these documents that is sitting in my bag right now, I found in PowerPoint, that the ad hoc committee, because of the nature of the committee, grievance panels or whatever, that they're not under Brown Act. But we have moved all of our ad hocs into standing committees, so homelessness, and they've been acting as if they were Brown Act anyway.
If I could just answer about ad hoc committees. The Brown Act is the thing that says that if you have an ad hoc committee, you don't have to follow all the Brown Act rules. So it's the Brown Act that says that. So it's better to make ad hoc committees standing committees, because then you follow the rules that we notify the community, which is sort of Brown Act. So I don't know if that addresses you.
Well, there's from 2004 a letter from the city's attorney's office that states, as related to the Brown Act, that that's true. The Brown Act doesn't apply to ad hoc committees, but for in fact, it's in the 2018 bylaws. What's interesting is that the 2018, what's on our website is actually the 2015. And I do take to heart your comment about if it feels like it's an ambush. It is absolutely not, and I don't want to stymie the process. And that's why I pose my comments as questions, not as decrees. And I'm certainly not saying I'm against it. If I can just find the page where it said.
From memory, ad hocs do not have to follow the Brown Act as long as they're only board members. But as soon as you have a stakeholder on a committee, it becomes a Brown Act requirement.
That is
That's
very true.
Right, so-
And I did my.
So that was in the list, so yes, so sorry, the specific language, it says ad hoc committees are not subject to the Brown Act unless, 1, a majority of the board are members of the committee, and 2, where an ad hoc committee has a majority of board members on the committee, any action, so on and so forth, unless the board had said otherwise, no action of the committee will be considered action.
So you can't have a majority of the board on an ad hoc committee because then it's a board meeting.
You can't have it on any committee. I don't want to spend time at the board meeting to go through the details, but I'm going to tell you that when we submit this to bond, and that's when the city attorney looks at it, and that's when they say whether we've done something wrong or not. And then they will kick it back to us. And then we will sit corrected and we will take a vote again, and that's fine. It's not approved until Dunn approves it.
Yeah, I'd like to say something on this. So, yeah.
It's been tabled.
It hasn't been tabled.
It has not been tabled.
Okay, I thought.
No.
Okay.
I'd like to comment on this. I tasked Nancy at the beginning of appointing her as bylaws chair to specifically look at this issue, which has been a problem for a long time. Currently, we do not have control of our bylaws, pretty much at all. We have a moratorium a year before every election. We have an election every 2 years, and it's a process that this has to follow every single time. Currently, our bylaws, as has been said, the bylaws and operating procedures are in conflict with one another. I know this because I have been on the fighting end of trying to resolve some of those very issues. A lot of people walk away from these board meetings and they don't, think twice about it. I don't. I dig into this stuff, I pore over it, I try to find solutions. Those solutions were translated to the bylaws committee, and the bylaws committee for 3 months. This is your actually fourth, no, I guess the first one we really didn't do. So 3 months, Nancy has sat in front of us and talked about the intentions of the new bylaws. She has hosted 3 committee meetings to pour over the new bylaws and operating procedures. So this is really the 6th time between a committee meeting and a board meeting that we've talked about these changes to the bylaws. Now, if people want to table it to address other issues, that's fine. I wish it would have been done previously. But what I will not stand for is people saying that this is being rushed in any way, because this is the third month that we've been doing this, and it was designed that way so that no one could have the argument that this is being rushed at all. So after 6 times, I'm not going to move the table. If someone wants to make that motion, then fine. I think it's time that we start this process now, because in a few months, we're going to be under a moratorium again. And we're going to have no choice but to go through the ridiculous process that we just did for the election, the ridiculous process that, in terms of appointing vacant chairs. There's a number of different things that we are addressing here. And this board meeting is not the time to read it. So, Alex.
Yeah, and I can't say I agree with everyone here. My question is that in agreement with, reflecting with what Barry said, is there a reason why we didn't just place this in a complete before and after format? Was it because we thought that it wasn't necessary?
No, because there are too many changes.
Okay.
And by the way, that format is handled for the amendment that Brian made, the strikeout and underline.
I believe Randall moved to table it. If I'm correct in that, I did second it.
Great. There's a motion to table on the floor. All those in favor of tabling this motion? Wait,
2.
if you're going to vote, put your hands up. All right, great, 2. So motion is defeated to table.
Can we vote on your amendment?
We do vote on the amendment first?
Your amendment.
Great. Yeah, I have an amendment. It's just I believe it's just to update
The titles of the standing committees.
the titles of the standing committee, but which, by the way, if someone read, also makes our long ad hoc committee on homelessness an official standing committee, as well as sustainability. So the motion, the amendment to motion, the president moves to amend the September 9th draft operating procedures as amended. The president's amendment is in italics under committees page 6, article 3, section 1, paragraph 1. I need a second.
Second.
Great. All those in favor of the amendment? It's unanimous? Thank you. And then, shall you read the motion?
I don't think we need to reread it. I read it.
I think it was unanimous. Did you want to?
That was the amendment.
No, it's talking about me. I abstained.
Motion,
I didn't read it. I can't vote on it.
That's fair. Motion 13A. So this will require 2/3 of a vote to pass. So all those in favor of motion 13A. And keep your hands up, please. Richard, are you up?
Yeah, want to say something.
Do you want to
12A.
say something or are you
Yes, I
voting?
do.
Oh,
Okay.
It's a philosophical question.
yeah.
It really is not, we're just passing it right back. It's only a question. Do you want, right now, they're loosening things up, so all you have to do is just change a operating procedure rather than a bylaw, which is more difficult. I understand why they're doing it. The question is, philosophically, do you want that done? So it's easy to change the rules instead of making it more difficult. I'm just asking you that something that does the board think should be easier to change the rules mid-game rather than making it more difficult?
If I may address that. We actually, we changed it so that it's a required 2/3 vote to change operating. So it is the same level of participation here. The only thing is you don't need to get approval from Don. So it's a 2/3 to change
I'm
operating.
just saying, I'm just putting that out there basically philosophically.
All right, let's redo the vote. So all those in favor of motion 13A? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Motion passes.
Yay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your hard work on this. All right, moving on to 14, the ad hoc committee, hopefully soon, not any longer. The ad hoc committee on homelessness report by Andrew Silver.
Good evening. All right, so since the agenda item calls for a report, I'm going to share with you a report of some of the work that we're doing on the homelessness committee. The objective of the homelessness committee is to research and seek implementation of best practices solutions that benefit the community and the homeless in Studio City. We're doing that through a combination of initiatives. First of all, we act as a liaison with LA Family Housing, which is the leadership for SPA 2. And I have, me and sometimes other people have meetings with them at least once a month that include the chief operating officer, the director of engagement, which is outreach, and the, I forget his exact title, but he's the person that's in charge of housing placement and rapid rehousing. And I have a meeting tomorrow morning as part of the steering committee of LA Family Housing, which is a group of 32 experts from a broad range of fields. And we're developing a comprehensive strategic plan for homelessness issues in the San Fernando Valley. I can share more information about that, but wouldn't be appropriate now. I've been given an online access to the outreach database, so I know when they're contacting the homeless people in Studio City and exactly where those contacts take place. I do know of one place that needs attention, and I will bring that to their attention to direct outreach workers to that location. Next week, I'm meeting with LASA and USC in developing a strategy for creating housing using outdated church properties. And there's been identified that there's suitable properties throughout the city, and we know properties in our area, not in Studio City, but in North Hollywood, relatively close. And there's a lot of bureaucratic issues in dealing with that, and so I'm working with LASA and USC in trying to resolve that and bring some housing for the homeless online. The committee is working on 5150 issues, which is the state law, state code that allows for a 72-hour hold. 5150 is not working for anybody right now. It's not working for the community, and it's not working for those in crisis. This morning I met with Todd Gilman, our local neighborhood city attorney, deputy city attorney, and I've read some of the case law. It's really complex. But Mr. Gilman knew of a model program out of Santa Monica. I know the chief executive officer of SPA 4 in Santa Monica. I'm going to get hooked up with that model program and investigate it and see if we can bring some solutions for the 5150 problem to Studio City. I hope to bring a motion regarding that at some point in the future. I'm just at the beginning here, but that's, I want to work towards a solution to that because it's not working. There's been a series of meetings with Councilman Krikorian and his staff. And he's got 2 bridge housing facilities in the works right now to provide, I forget the count, it's about 150 units between the 2 proposals to come online for bridge housing. And again, not in Studio City, they'll be in North Hollywood. There really aren't any viable sites in Studio City for any type of housing. But we are looking at projects in North Hollywood because that's going to benefit, but they're right next door, right? So that's going to benefit us. I've been invited by the mayor's office to join a panel at the Congress of Neighborhoods on homelessness. So I will be at the Congress of Neighborhoods representing Studio City. And I've also submitted a in memoriam tribute for Keith Schwallenberg, my predecessor, as chair of the homelessness committee, ad hoc homelessness
ad hoc committee on homelessness.
And we are supporting the facility with the most direct contact with the homelessness in Studio City, which is NoHo Home Alliance. And there's a bake sale for NoHo Home Alliance at the Sunday farmers market. So please come out and support our bake sale for NoHo Home Alliance, because that I see the homeless people in Studio City at their Monday and Wednesday drop-ins, and we're connecting them with the services that they need to move them through into a better situation. So that's the work that the committee has been working on. So why is the Homelessness Committee opposing Council File 190602 S1 to amend LA Municipal Code 41.18? And simply, the proposal does not meet our objectives to benefit the community or the homeless. And the first question that becomes a problem in looking at the proposed amendments, and I should point out that it's just a proposal now. The city attorney has not actually written a law for the Council of Homelessness and Poverty Committee to vote on yet. But the main question is, where would the homeless go? There is nowhere for them to go. And shuffling people from block to block doesn't accomplish anything. And it breaks relationships that are existing with outreach workers from LAHSA and LA Family Housing. And those relationships are key in ultimately finding housing and improving the situation in Studio City. And if this proposal came to be, it would ultimately be up to LAPD to do this, and that would be just a tremendous waste of LAPD resources, shuffling the homeless people from one place to another. And they'd be citing them with citations, which they obviously can't pay, which could ultimately lead to jail sentences, which just worsens their situation, because when they get moved and when they ultimately get jailed, they lose what little possessions they have. And one of the things that NoHo Home Alliance does is get them birth certificates and driver's licenses, because you can't do anything without those documents. What happens when they get arrested, go to jail? They lose their basic documents, they lose their identity, and the process starts all over again. It's a waste of everybody's time. And if we're taking an officer off the streets for 3 or 4 hours to book somebody because they couldn't pay their citations for being 501 feet from a park, that's taking resources off the street. I would rather, and again, it's not the best use of our tax dollars. And I don't think we want our tax dollars wasted on meaningful and wasteful enforcement that accomplishes nothing. So we're not alone in our position on this particular council file. LA Family Housing opposes. The SPA 4, the leader of the People Concern, opposes. NoHo Home Alliance opposes. Attached to the file currently, if you look at the council file, Atwater Village has a community impact statement opposing attached to the file, and so does, so does Cypress Park. Los Feliz voted on their community impact statement opposing yesterday, so it's not on file yet, but that's another neighborhood council that has already voted to oppose this. So there's at least 3 neighborhood councils opposing it, plus the service providers in our area. SELA also opposes. I could go on with the organizations and community organizations that oppose this. The LA Times has published 2 editorials opposing this, and I have them here if you'd like to see them. One was dated September 12th, and I forget the date of the other one. I have them with me if you want to see them. And as stated in the LA Times, this proposal will not make the homeless magically disappear. It does have the potential to create new skid rows as we herd the homeless into smaller and smaller areas. And that, the homeless are going to be forced into possibly residential areas, and they're going to be in more compact areas, and you're going to create new skid rows with this, and it just doesn't make sense. And I know that we're all tired of this crisis. And it's one of the biggest challenges facing cities in how to balance the rights of those living on the streets and the needs and rights of the community. It's something that cities around the country and especially LA is dealing with. But this proposal is just not the answer. But doing nothing is not an option either. And there is a better way. And your board voted on the better way a couple months ago. And that's called the LA Sanitation Care Program. And I've been working really hard for implementation of the LA Sanitation Care Program. And the official rollout is October 1 for this program. And I have the detailed care plan program with me, and also the implementation program. I've talked with Councilman Krikorian, his staff, LA Sanitation, and LA Family Housing, because they have to cooperate in this. The care teams provide receptacles, regular scheduled cleanups, so they're not just replying to complaints, there's regular cleanups. Outreach workers are working with them. They train the inhabitants of the encampments on maintaining their space and the laws that they have to comply with. And the care teams have been going through the training so that they can provide the training to the encampment residents. And so and with the regular contact of the outreach workers, we're developing the critical long-term relationships to improve the homeless situation in our community. So the LA Sanitation Care teams need to be given a chance before we just shuffle these people from one corner to the next corner.
You're gonna open up the public comment first, Barry?
I was just gonna mention procedurally, the motion should say, submitted as a community impact statement, just next time.
No.
And you don't really need to say, send a letter, because the motion and the accompanying letter that Alexa sends is the letter. It doesn't have to be stated in the actual motion. So just those couple of points.
Hold on.
Okay, if the motion calls for sending a letter to the council, then you send a letter to the council. I'm making a point of order. And if he wants to, if the committee wants to submit a CIS, and the motion ought to say, request the Board of Studio City Council to, submit a CIS essentially saying X, Y, Z. That's all.
Eric.
Yeah, but if he wants to just write a letter to Courtney, he can do that, and then do a CIS next time so that it can move forward now if it's time. And I agree that 41.18 is not the solution, unfortunately. This is expanding the places where people can't be. And yesterday at the Board of Supervisors, or Tuesday, I guess, there was a very big discussion about this on the national level, where there's a place, Boise, Idaho, I'm sure you've heard about it, and there's a legal case called Martin versus Boise, Idaho. And it was about finding a place for the guy to sleep. You can't make him move if there's no place to go, that old argument, which is an important argument, but it was very tense, and the supervisors, who are very liberal and generally speaking trying to help the homeless, came to a 2-2 split, and the deciding vote was, let's write an amicus brief that's in support of figuring out how to get rid of everybody. So it was very heartbreaking for people in the community who were trying to help. Many of their people who work in homelessness, like LA Family Housing, came out and begged the supervisors not to do it. And it's not really that important, but it is. It's important because it's about what we're all experiencing, which is this maximum frustration on both sides, where you just simply can tell that we're at like a tipping point. So my public comment is I support opposing this.
Rachel, did you want to speak on this, or just?
I did.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think, there's only roughly 35 homeless in Studio City, so to ask a neighborhood council to vote on something that really doesn't affect heavily on our area versus the rest of the city is kind of a big deal. I know I was in the Built Gymnasium the other day, and a homeless person had come in and attacked the person behind the desk. And there's 3 black and whites that showed up, police officers, that had to show up. So those resources are still being used, those resources are being used regardless of if they're shuffling people along or they're coming to defend somebody who had been attacked by a homeless person. So I just feel like the rights of the homeless are starting to supersede the rights of everyday citizens. And I would urge the board not to vote on this.
Rick.
In a nutshell, what do you want to?
Can I address, okay, so one thing, the count of 36 homeless in Studio City was 2018. The 2019 was 118. That number may or may not be accurate. It's suspected to be higher. So so I wanted to clarify that. And if the officers are moving people from one corner to another, they may not be available to report to an actual situation like you encountered. And that's exactly the concern, is we want them to be available to report to actual incidents as opposed to just hurting people, shuffling people around. Yes.
So in a quick little nutshell, what do you want to do with 5150?
That's not part of this motion, is it?
Yeah, no, that's
So we didn't have any comments after his report before we got to the motion. I mean, we could address that because I've got one just after the motion is done with.
As long as we do it orderly, yeah, you can address it.
Okay, so I'm not looking to rewrite 5150. I'm doing initial research to find practical solutions to dealing with disturbances in the community from the mentally ill.
Was it just, are you looking at longer hold times than 72 hours? Is that one of the?
No, and that's actually on the law. You can change, after a 72-hour watch period, you can move it to 14 days. But that's not the issue. What I'm looking at doing is better implementation of LAPD SMART teams, where there is currently LAPD liaisons with Department of Mental Health. But they're using them procedurally, not actively in the community. So that's one thing I'm going to look into. I'm not looking to rewrite 5150.
Okay.
That's a heavy lift.
All right, Alex.
Yes, hi. Well, what I'm hearing a lot of is I think I'm echoing one of our stakeholders, is that what we're doing is we're superseding the rights of the residents in the area for sort of a hands-off approach and a laissez-faire approach with our homeless, which include mentally ill and chemically dependent people. I'm following, having lived in the Valley and in North Hollywood and Studio City my whole life. The last few years, most of these ideas that have been implemented by our city are failing miserably. As you just stated, the numbers of our homeless is increasing. Maybe it's time to let the police do things that other neighboring cities have been doing, and to my opinion, I think they've been successful. So unless I see something that's tangibly bettering our situation, I really can't believe what you're telling me personally, as do what your ideas will bring forth. So all I see here is basically a more weakening of our city's ability to protect their residents, and for another theory, which I don't believe will be effective. So that's fine. Thank you.
All right. So can I address that briefly?
If you'd like.
So
I will say, if we could just keep questions and answers, I don't want to spend like an hour on this motion. That's all I'll say.
Okay. And I, these are really hard issues. I get that, and there's a difference of opinion, and I get that. And there are no easy answers. But there's, we're studying best practices solutions, and arresting people and moving people around is not the most cost-effective way. Now there isn't a laissez-faire approach. There's specific actions happening with outreach, working with the homeless people, and we're getting homeless people housed. 21,000 people were housed last year. And the reason that the number went up is because there's a huge influx of new people falling into homelessness. The number of homeless is not static. If it was static, 2/3 of the homeless people in Los Angeles would have been housed last year. We have a tremendous influx of new people falling into homelessness.
Yeah, but not only locally, all nationally it is not going up. It's coming here because we are drawing them. So let's be clear about this. In my opinion, it's not an economic catalyst which you are trying to propagate. What it is basically drawing people from all over this country because we're offering things that they can't get anywhere else.
Yeah,
So let's be clear and honest about this discussion.
There's no empirical evidence of that.
There's no empirical evidence.
I don't want to have a huge, again, I don't want to
It won't be,
relitigate
but I just want to
all
be
of
clear and
homelessness
honest.
crisis.
Let's be honest.
That's fine, but I don't want to litigate this
We're not
every single
litigating.
time there's,
Expressing.
we're doing it back and forth. You've made your piece, you've made your piece. I'd like to go to Adam, then I'm going to go to the other Adams.
I guess a really quick question for the board. Has everybody read 4118 before you vote on it? Just,
Yes.
okay.
I sent out the new and the old.
Yeah, I
version.
mean, I saw that. I mean, I think as far as action taken by the city, it's the most succinct and clear document with a clear deterministic path that I've seen since I followed city council. And a lot of it is about keeping children and families safe. And it does not mean that because we kick homeless people out of temporary encampments that are close to schools, that they're not gonna find temporary living situations. And also, everything else you're doing is absolutely incredible. But I do think this is the strongest action taken by the city. And I've had various members, stakeholders reach out to me via email to show their support for this. So I thought it was my duty and obligation to also, after reading it thoroughly.
Okay, so again, I have to clarify. First of all, 4118 is the law that was litigated in Martin versus Boise. And that's an old law. That's not council file 190602.
But did you share
So
the council?
4118 is
What's the council file?
currently been stricken down by the courts. So 4118, as you've read it, is not a functioning law. What the council is looking at doing is revising 4118 to attempt to make it comply with the court ruling. But people have already said, organizations have already said that if it gets revised, it will be taken to the court again, which will be more waste of our tax dollars.
I'd like to point out several things, corrections as we were, clarifications. One, 4118 was not litigated. It was a similar ordinance in the city of Boise. I'm not a lawyer and I haven't had a chance to read the where the dissents are. Boise, if they wish to spend the money, has numerous claims to possibly be heard and get the Ninth Circuit, who is famous for being overturned, corrected. The current verbiage of 4118 has been around for a long time. I sent around the proposed verbiage, which is still on its way to the city attorney's office to be reviewed. And as a representative for the business community, I really think that the protections of intentionally blocking and interfering with safe and free passage and restrict the 10 feet of clearance from any utilizable and operational entrance, exit, driveway, or loading dock is something that directly affects our business stakeholders. And it also affects those of us who live in different parts of the neighborhood, because you see these people stacked up everywhere. They're in the alleyways. You can't get into the garages and stuff in your house. And until they come back with a new and reviewed 4118, yes, Martin v. Boise may have effect on this, which is why the city's looking at it before we get sued. And if you look at the agenda for the committee, they had a closed session regarding one potential lawsuit the city is already facing. We can't leave this in place. We need to do something. And currently, I really think we should wait to hear what the city attorney's office comes back with, rather than take a position on something we don't even know what it says.
Question.
Okay, so I get the issue of the impediment of access and sidewalks and all of that. The question that we're talking about here is who's going to enforce those common sense issues? I'm not saying we're not doing anything. I'm saying that there's a better way to do that. And that's the LA Sanitation Care Teams.
They're not going to enforce the law, only the police can enforce the law.
Okay, but they're going to go to the encampments on a scheduled basis, on a regular basis, and make them comply with the law.
It'll be the
It's
first
much
time
more
in
cost
history the LA
effective as
City
a
had a
Guys,
taxpayer.
know that before, please let him answer, he has the floor.
To have sanitation do that rather than LAPD. I don't think that's the best use of LAPD. Let's let sanitation do it.
Well, the vagrants are a primary source of minor crime, that's an LAPD thing. Or sanitation goes out there, they get in trouble, they have to call black and white anyway. Why cut out the middleman, have sanitation clean things, and not run around playing social police?
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna go to Lisa, then Randy, and I wanna vote.
Might you consider filing a CIS,
Pardon?
a community impact statement in regard to this?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I didn't hear the first part.
Might you consider, instead of sending a letter,
Oh,
consider filing a community?
the intent, okay, so the intent is to file a community impact statement. And I may not have procedurally done it correctly. So the intent is to file a
File a
community
CIS.
impact statement,
Okay.
which 3 other neighborhood councils have done. And stating similar opposition.
So should we?
Are we able to do a friendly
Friendly
amendment for CIS?
amendment to?
Yes?
Yes.
What, can someone propose wording to me and I can, someone who knows the correct? No one knows the correct. Hold on.
I know, I'm just not going to do it.
No, fair enough.
Just change the grace to send a letter to send a community impact statement to the case file and then put the number in, which is 190602-1. This one.
Okay, so.
Want me to repeat that?
Yeah, please.
Students neighborhood council posts a city council file, vote on what's written there, and agrees to send a community impact statement to the case file, opposing any kind of revision to 4118 that would undermine the process that's been implemented in the homeless. So just basically.
Right.
And you could still say, and send a letter to Councilman Krikorian if that's what you want to do.
I'll leave that up to Andrew. What do you have?
Yeah, let's send a letter too.
Great.
Do you accept the amendment? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, and then Randy.
I think a lot of stakeholders, try not to repeat what has already been said, but I would say one is, my concern would be the recent audit that was done of LASA and their performance. While certainly I think there's a lot to be celebrated, moreover, I think there was, in my opinion, not as impactful as I think even they would like by their own metrics that they set out. That combined with the city attorney thinking in theory, Mitchell Farrell's leading his committee on homelessness, thinking that the changes proposed, it's all theoretical at the moment, right? Could be in compliance with Martin v. Boise, the city of Boise. It seems odd that we would oppose something that we don't know if it will actually come to pass, number one. And number two, I do think, as you even mentioned when correcting a stakeholder, of how much the homeless population has increased in Studio C, that does have a direct impact on our community. I can say anecdotally, walking down Moore Park with my wife and son and 5-month-old daughter to go to the park. Now, certainly you can call this a first world problem, but because of the sidewalk being blocked by an encampment and because of a couple people arguably mentally ill, I chose to cross the street illegally, which, as you know, cars are flying down Moore Park, because that actually felt like a safer option than to take my wife and children through an encampment. And so, and while that may be anecdotal, my assumption would be that if we were to canvass many stakeholders, their experience, that they could share many stories. The petty theft that's happening in the markets at CVS, at Vaughn's, at Gelson's. I spoke to a manager who said, she's like, we don't even try to stop it. We're not allowed to stop it. And so I just think that while there's a lot better ways for and a lot of great work being done, I do think that we have to maybe wait and see what of this law shakes out, and then make a decision as to whether we want to send a community impact statement that either we're in support or against.
You want to respond to that, or should I read the amended motion?
I totally understand, and the objective of the committee is to address the community concerns and try to implement best practices solutions for dealing with the homeless. And criminalizing the homeless is just not in best practices.
I agree.
It's too expensive for the taxpayers, and it doesn't achieve the desired results. It sounds good, but if you look at the economic studies, it's not best practices solutions. And so that's what we're trying to stop is a motion from the city council that doesn't best serve the community. And we're looking to fully implement a program that will hopefully address exactly your concern that the community has.
Okay, can I read the amended here?
Yes.
Okay, so it would be, the Studio City Neighborhood Council opposes City Council File 19-0602-S1 and agrees to send the CIS to the case file and agrees to send a letter to Councilmember Krikorian to oppose any kind of revision to 4118D that would undermine the process that has been implemented in addressing the homelessness crisis in our neighborhoods. How's that sound?
Yes.
Great. I'll move to a vote then. All in favor of motion 14A? All opposed? All abstained? Great. 851. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Outreach Committee report by Ally Spots the Lid.
Mr. President?